Welcome to Refine and Shine, the podcast dedicated to mastering the art of continuous improvement and optimizing every aspect of your life. I'm Angelina Rivera, your host, and we are going to uncover the secrets to refining our lives, habits, and processes to unlock our inner brilliance. Join us on Refine and Shine, where we delve into how you can achieve more in life without the burnout and stress. This podcast provides a platform for listeners on a path to a more fulfilling life through continuous improvement and personal growth. In each episode, I and a diverse array of guests are going to discuss practical strategies for up-leveling every aspect of your life. From developing good habits and organizing your space to refining your mindset and personal goals, we explore it all. Our guests share personal stories about the systems they developed and the tweaks they've made in their lives when refinement was needed, allowing them to truly shine. Listen to Refine and Shine to learn how you can implement continuous improvement techniques in your daily routine, develop and maintain habits that lead to success and satisfaction, organize your life to reduce stress and increase productivity, foster a growth mindset that propels you to new heights. My mission is to inspire you to take bold action, make positive changes, and become the best version of yourself. Whether you're aiming to elevate your career, nurture meaningful relationships, or enhance your overall well-being, Refine and Shine is your guiding light. Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Refine and Shine. I have an amazing guest with us today, and I have met her. We've probably only seen each other a few times in person, but we have such a great connection, and we met through putting ourselves in the room, taking action. And even if it was messy action, we took action and invested in a virtual coaching program, and it has been nothing but amazing. And I love that we finished this program over 3 years ago, and our connection, our friendship has still remained. And that's what's so important about putting yourself into rooms. I have an amazing friend here. Cathy is a wife, a mom to 4 kiddos, and lives outside of Houston, Texas. She loves Jesus. Her faith is amazing. She loves her family and she loves chips and queso. I love that about you. So, uh, welcome, Cathy. I'm so excited that you're here that you said yes to being on my podcast and sharing a little bit about you. So I'm going to open it up to you.
Okay, I love it. Well, first of all, thank you so much for having me. I feel like it's such an honor to get to speak um, because I love what you're doing. I love that you're sharing stories of other people and how we shine. And like you said, just kind of find our own healing. But like you said, I love how we met in an unconventional way and just by getting in the room. And it was such a special group of women. And I love that we're all still connective and supportive. And I think that that is crazy, crazy special. I love that what I've found is in sharing so often in our pain, in our grief, we're not the only ones going through with what we're going through. But so often you feel like you feel like you're alone. And so I've found that there's just so much power in bringing our hurt, bringing our shames just into the light. And that's what I love about these podcasts is because that's what you're doing. The enemy wants us to keep our shame, our things that we're dealing with in the dark, right? But the truth is that we're promised struggles, we're promised valleys. And so that's where our growth comes from. But we also get to share our stories and bring hope to other people. And so I'm just honored to be here. Um, like you said, my name is Cathy. I live outside of a town in Houston, Texas. I am a wife and a mom to 4 kids, ages 16, 13, 10, and 9. My kids do a university model type schooling, which means they're at school 3 days a week, but they're home 2 days a week, which I absolutely love. And so between school and all their activities, they definitely keep me on my toes. Um, like you had mentioned, Angelina, I am a Texan through and through. I love all things chips and queso. I love God and I love our country. So let me just kind of jump right into what I wanted to talk about with you guys today is I really love how God uses my story and there's so much freedom in telling your story. And so that being said, even though my story started a little over 23 years ago, I still get emotional about it at times. So I welcome your grace for sure. And also just that everybody's story looks a little bit different. I'm going to be talking about adoption, but my adoption journey definitely looks different than other people's. And I would say that it's different for everybody that's even in this story that I share. We all have different perspectives. And so I'm just going to share, what mine is on this. And so a little bit about me and how I grew up. I grew up in Amarillo, Texas, and part of a very close and loving family. I was raised in the church, and really growing up, my virginity was something that I held close to my heart. I am a rule follower by nature and never want to disappoint anyone, especially my mom. I was pressured in high school. I was teased by friends regularly, and it's one of those things that you feel like you're the only one choosing that. But it was really important to me to stick to my values, stick to what I believed in. At the age of 21, I did move off to finish college. I wanted to be somewhere closer to where my dad was. And I got into a relationship when I was in college with someone that I worked with. He was older than I was. And I remember really feeling like our relationship got serious faster than I expected. I was in a relationship with someone who was very controlling, very possessive. And then one day I definitely let things go too far. It wasn't a night of passion or romance or anything like I had imagined. And I definitely realized that it was something that I needed to get out of. And that's when I found out I was pregnant. And so, for years, I struggled with, okay, why did this happen to me? So many people were in sexual relationships. Why me? And I dealt with a shame of being pregnant at a young age and being pregnant and not married. And I often felt like I just walked around with a scarlet letter. I wasn't until I was much older that I was really able to forgive myself and know that Jesus had already died for my sins, that that wasn't something that I needed to take on any longer. But as soon as I found out I was pregnant, I knew that I was to choose adoption. At that time, adoption wasn't talked about as much as it is today. I didn't know anyone who had been adopted. I didn't know anyone who had chosen adoption, and there definitely weren't support groups for it. Today, I love that there's so many options. I love that more people are talking about it. I love that it's, a more talked about option. Um, but back then it was, I was scared. I didn't feel, supported, that sort of thing. And so, I ended up moving back home to be with my family, and my family was very supportive. Um, and I started to go through an adoption service there, but I really felt like I already knew who I wanted to adopt the baby. And
Mhm.
so before I moved away for college, I had been in a wedding with a close family friend. And before the wedding, I went to go get my hair done, and I fell in love with the woman who had done my hair. So after the wedding, I had started to go back to her to get my hair cut. And so I went back to school, and while I was away, I had heard that she and her husband had gotten pregnant with twins, and she had gone into labor early, and one of the twins was not born alive and the other would pass away just hours later. And that
Wow.
was in July of 2000, and I found out I was pregnant that fall. And
Oh, wow.
so I know it's crazy. It's crazy. And so when I got back into town, it was really, I was about 7 months pregnant, and I went to go get my haircut. And I talked to her, and she was very open, and she had said that she and her husband had considered adoption, but they had so many bills from in vitro that they just really couldn't afford it. It was such a shame. It was such an expense. And so before I left, I just had a tug on my heart and asked her if it would be okay if I came over to talk with her and her husband. And, I remember that she had tears in her eyes, and she just looked at me and said that, ever since I heard that you were pregnant, I knew that this was our baby. And, that's only God, you know. And so Deborah and Steve, they were so great to me those last couple of months, checking in to see if I needed anything. They sent me for a prenatal massage. They really wanted to find out the sex of the baby, and had a friend who was a sonographer. And so I remember going to this place of business and having the sonogram, and everybody being so excited when we found out the sex of the baby. And really, no one ever saying anything to me. I remember leaving that office with everybody, excited and congratulations and all of that, knowing that someone else's, excitement was my heartache. someone else's happiness was my pain. And I felt like that was just kind of the beginning of walking through that process. My mom was so great. She had found a grief share group for us to be a part of at a local church. And this was for a group of people who had lost their own children to death. Because, like I kind of mentioned earlier, there wasn't a whole lot for people who had chosen adoption. And so, while most people there, which I totally understand, could not fathom or understand why I was choosing adoption, when of course they would do anything to get their child back, it was such a great place for me to learn the different stages of grief. It was a great place for me to learn what to expect that I was going to go through, and that also those feelings of grief that I was going to go through and process were completely normal. And so I'm so thankful for that group. Um, I loved being pregnant. I loved feeling her in my belly. I loved that it was just the two of us. It was such a special time. I did go into labor 8 days late and welcomed Lexi into the world on July 3rd of 2001, and my world would never be the same from that day. We I was so thankful to get to spend the full 3 days in the hospital with her, and on the second day, our family priest had come in. We did a family blessing over her. We baptized her. It was a really special time for my family to get to pray over her and just to have that bonding with her. It was, of course, a very emotional day, full of tears and but it was so special. And although my family was crazy supportive, my mom just didn't really think I should choose adoption. She really was struggling, and my conviction never wavered. I really felt that God had placed this on my heart, and that is what He was really wanting me to choose. And, I'll be honest, I remember looking at her in that bassinet in the hospital and wondering if she would ever know how much I loved her. Would she ever know that I thought I was doing what was best for her? I wanted her to have a mom and a dad, just a life that I really couldn't provide for her at that time. And I knew that her parents could. And so on July 5th, they would wheel me out of the hospital room that final time, and a piece of me would go with her. And I remember going straight home from the hospital and just wanting to go. Back then, it was like 1 hour photo, right? It was still digital prints. My mom and I ran to the 1 hour photo and got as many pictures of her as we could, because it's like I didn't want to forget any detail of what she was like. And her mom was so great. She told me that I could be as involved as little or as much as I wanted to. And even then, I knew that they needed that time to become a family, and I really needed that time to grieve. And
Right.
so I moved back to finish college, and her mom was so great about sending letters and pictures and checking on me. And so um, that was a really special way to stay connected. And then the day before she turned 1, I happened to be back in town for a surgery that my mom was having. And I was heading back out of town and stopped at like a pack and mail, and there was a sign on the door that said, "We'll be back in a few minutes." It was something along those lines. So I was waiting in my car, and I happened to look over and saw that Deborah and Lexi were in the car next to me. And so, of course, we immediately got out. We immediately hugged. She asked if I wanted to see Lexi, and of course I did. And it was so amazing because God's timing was so good. He knew that I wasn't ready before, but He knew that now she was like more of a toddler and not just that baby that I had to say goodbye to in the hospital,
Right.
that his timing was perfect, which
Right.
was amazing. And so we quickly became a family. We started spending holidays together. Lexi started to see my mom and her husband more often. She calls them Mimi and Papa. My brother was there. He was Uncle Mike. We just all became very, very natural. It was really just an extension of my family. And it was only 1 year later that I would start to date my own husband, and we would got married soon after that. And so it was so special to have Lexi in our wedding. She was our flower girl, and her mom was my maid of honor. And we really all remained very close and just really did life together, which was such a blessing because Lexi doesn't know life without me. She doesn't know life without James, my husband. And her parents were always very open and honest about her adoption. They always told her at a young age that she was born in my belly and in their hearts. So it was always something that was very natural for her. And I want to be able to sit here and say that, everything stayed wonderful and rainbows and butterflies. But life happens, right? And so
Right.
Her
Right.
parents did divorce when she was about 9 years old. And it was definitely a different dynamic switch. James and I were very careful to kind of stay on the outside of that. Definitely didn't want to interfere. And, at times felt like we were walking on eggshells because we never wanted that ability for us to see Lexi to be taken away. And
Oh, yeah.
so, we still saw Lexi several times a year, but then it kind of started to shift. Instead of all of us being together, Lexi would just come to us. She would be at our house for holidays. She would make trips to see us. And so that was really cool because through all of that, James and I were able to be a constant in Lexi's life. And, I've gotten asked several times before, do I have regrets on placing Lexi with Deborah and Steve since they've divorced? And my answer is always absolutely not. There is no such thing as perfect parents. In an ideal world, do I wish that they were still married? Absolutely. But I know that they love her and I know that they were the best parents for her. I'm not a perfect parent. And so I certainly didn't expect that of them. And so I truly believe that we are anointed by God to parent our children and that He chose Deborah and Steve to parent her. And so that's just something that I still really believe in. Um, the older she got, she definitely had a little bit tougher questions that would kind of, catch me off guard. Like questions like, why wasn't I good enough? Why didn't you want to keep me? And, it was different because she got to see how my family looked then. And so I think that was natural. Like, wait a second, you're married, you have 4 kids of your own. Why wasn't I able to be a part of this? And so I was always thankful for the openness, for the honesty. I always tried to answer her question with age appropriate answers. She didn't need to know all of the details, at 10, and she was okay with simple answers. But, as she got older, I was honest with her and I loved that I was always a safe place for her to talk to and walk through that with her. I think that fear can be a common feeling for both birth parents and adoptive families. But the truth is that, we're not the enemy. I never felt like I was trying to take Lexi away from them. I that was never, an intention. I always looked at my role as just an extension of her family, as someone that could love her, that could pour into her. And so I think that that's a common fear. What if my child loves their birth parent more? What if they have a stronger connection? But I think we have to take ourselves out of the equation, that this really isn't about us. It's not about the birth mom. It's not about the adopted mom. And it's really about supporting the child the best way you can and what they really need. As Lexi got older, she actually chose to go to college down here closer to us. She went to Texas A&M, and it was such a blessing because it really was close to where we live. It's about an hour and 24 minutes from here. And her freshman year was when the quarantine hit. And so she was able to spend 7 weeks with us during the quarantine. And it was such a blessing for our family because before that point, she would come and stay with us. And it was more like family in from out of town, right? Like she had the guest bedroom and, everybody's kind of on their best behavior. But when she was here for 7 weeks, it was like, all right, girl, welcome to the chaos. And she really became part of our family. And because she was a part of our everyday. And so she's been able to really form just such a really cool bond with my other 4 children that are, her brothers and sisters. And I remember her being here one Christmas. We were driving around looking at Christmas lights. And you guys, if you've ever been in Houston, the traffic is just insane. And we were just like in this exit line forever because of construction and everybody's crazy and complaining and tired. And I know my husband had to have a rough day at work. So I'm not really sure any of us were quite in the Christmas spirit. However, all 7 of us had stopped to get coffee, and hot chocolates and a bathroom break, and Lex had looked over at me and she said, "I'm having so much fun." And at first I thought she was being sarcastic. And so because I was like, hadn't she just been in that same car ride as me? But she hugged my neck and she thanked me. And I thanked her for being such a good sport. But she just said, like with just true, like she just meant it with every bone in her body. She said, "It's everything I've always wanted." And it was so special for me because I think what Lexi always needed was to know that she was included, that she was just a part of our family, and she needed to know that she belonged. And so I think that was so special. She actually, during her last semester in college, a couple years ago, her parents had asked if she could move in with us because she only had one semester left and really only had a couple classes. And it just really made the most sense. So of course we were like, of course. And so that was super special because she was here really full time and their relationship was to grow even more because she was at all their sporting events. She was at around the dinner table with us. In fact, she's lived here for the last 2 years and it's been crazy, crazy special. She's gone back to school and gotten her teaching certificate and is going to be teaching this fall at a local elementary school. Um, and God has always been a really big part of our family. And it's been so special to watch her faith grow since she's been here. And I always say to people that I believe that God didn't put us in Lexi's life back then for then. He put us in Lexi's life back then for now because we get to walk alongside her. James and I, while we're not her mom and dad, we are more like coaches. We get to do life without her and we get to be safe people that can have hard conversations with her. And I'm crazy thankful for that. I believe that God has blessed me and James with our 4 kids because I did his will. I chose adoption. And, when I met James, Lexi was just a part of the package and he never questioned it. And this journey has been just as much his as it has been mine. He has been such a great, safe place for me to help navigate, these uncharted waters. Just like parenting, there's no handbook on how to have an open adoption.
Right.
And it's been full of heartache, it's been full of pain and grief. And it can be super messy, there's no question. But, it's also wonderful and it's beautiful. And hard, I think is what has made it so beautiful. We've all kind of learned along the way what works for us. And as a birth mom, James has let me grieve. He's walked me through several stages of it. And I think my grief, like most people, it shows up in different ways and at different times. And of course, when you least expect it, right?
Oh,
And
yes.
so that's something that I think with time gets better. I don't know that it always goes away. I think that it just kind of maybe looks different. And it was real special because when James and I moved here about 13 years ago to Houston, God started placing families in our life that would adopt domestically and internationally. And until that point, I hadn't really known anyone that had gone through the adoption process. And it was so sweet how God knew I needed to see that. I love that I was able to love on those families, and also just be able to share my story with them. And a few years ago, Lexi and I took to social media and really started sharing our story. And it's always been so amazing to see just how supportive people are and encouraged, because that was always our hope, is just if we could just give one person hope, if we could just help one person see maybe outside of what they were struggling with. And while some people definitely don't understand, and there will be, anytime you share on social media, there will be haters come out of the woodwork. And in the beginning it was hard and it was crushing. But it was crazy because, like I said, it's like if we could just reach one mom, if we could reach one child and give them hope, it was totally worth it. And that's why we both really continue to share today. This is part of who we are. Adoption has made us stronger. And Lexi's one of my best friends, and I'm so grateful that God gave her to me to walk this, crazy card, journey with. And so it's been such a blessing, such a blessing. So that's kind of my story in a nutshell. But I love it. I love sharing it. I love just hope, like I said, hoping to give other people hope.
Well, there's a couple of things that came to mind, and one of the things that comes to mind is Proverbs 18:2. And that in the new version, it says that fools find no pleasure in understanding, but delight in airing their own opinions, right? So you brought it up several times, like scared of the judgment, scared of, or, and then people, when you guys shared your story, which I did watch the one Facebook Live that you guys did
Yes.
together a couple years ago, and it was so touching. I was crying. Because it's all about people wanna put in their own perspective or judge or things like that, but they don't know what it's like to be in the journey that you did, and I commend you because it's so it is so hard, to say that, "Oh, you shoulda did this or do that." the thing that people don't realize is that you chose to have that child. You chose to give her to a loving family. What people don't understand is so quickly that you could have did something totally opposite, right? And
Sure.
like, and that's not what you chose. And but they wouldn't have seen the opposite that you did. But they are still, and so they should be commending you for what happened, that you were able to do, to give her a life that, give her life. In fact, that's true. And it goes back to, like, when my husband and I, we had our children first and then we got married. And so people are like, "Hey, how come you've only been married for 20 years, but you've been together 29?" Well, we kind of did it
Sure.
backwards.
Sure.
But the fact is, everybody's quick to judge, but they don't live your life, and they don't understand the things and the trials and the tribulations that you go through. And I think that it's amazing that you're sharing it, and it's the impact of one person. If you can impact one person or one family, and I understand the journey, or what she may have felt like, maybe I wasn't loved, or maybe I wasn't wanted, or all of those types
Sure.
of things, and that she has learned and she's grown from it, and you guys do life together. And
Yeah.
I think that's so amazing. I think it's something that, you know, shame and judgment are all around us. People always want to give their opinion. The fact is, you took an action, you did something, um, you to give her life. And the fact when you guys shared your story, it was so beautiful, and that you're not scared to share it.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah,
Mm.
and it's crazy because for so long I didn't, it was kind of like my close family and friends knew about it, but it just wasn't something that I just went crazy with. And when we did, I tell you, I think it was so healing, really for both of us. And, like you said, it's like the devil certainly wants her to feel like she's not good enough and that she wasn't wanted. And those are way easier to believe. But that's what's been so great about James and I being able to be in her life is because I can quickly combat those and remind her of, no, you are loved, you are worthy, you are chosen. And it's like we can just put those, we can call those for what they are. Those are lies. And
Mhm.
so those feelings don't those that doesn't come from God. And
Right.
so I love that she's been, honest about, anytime she's struggling with any of that. So we can be like, nope, not true.
And one of the things, I know that you said, like, you went through like the grieving counseling and things like that. Like, what a like for your mother to even think about that. I'm like, your mother sounds amazing, because I wouldn't even have thought to do that. And in fact, I struggled, and I talked about it on my first episode when I miscarried at 5 months. I felt so ashamed. I felt like I did something wrong, and I didn't know why. And I was like, did God not love me, or
Mm,
did I fail? And then, it was just all these things that went through, and it was 22 years ago, and I didn't even there was nothing offered, or I didn't know how to
yeah,
find what I needed,
sure.
and lack of support, and I did not really talk much about it. I even collapsed from exhaustion because I was holding on to this pain, and not really I just jumped into, like, okay, going back to work, doing this, doing that. Like, I didn't deal with the emotions and physically take care of my body
Yeah.
until I collapsed from work, like, collapsed at work and was taken off work. And those are the things, like, that people don't understand, like, the heartache and all the things that you went through, and for them to judge you was, the people. And I know that you still have people judging you today, and people are
Sure.
gonna judge, but what we have to do is keep our eye on the prize, and be focused on what God wants us to do, and the story that God wants us to share, because
Yeah.
there's gonna be valleys we go through and hard times in life. It's just, what are we doing to show that we can get through the hard and continue to shine for others? And I think that that's really amazing.
Absolutely, and I think that it's like, you know, of course, is that what I dreamed of, when I was a little kid that I thought my life was gonna look like? Absolutely not. But it's like, thank goodness, for the forgiveness and the grace that God gives us every single day. And so it's like being like, okay, you know what? Yep, that wasn't a great choice, but here's how we can move forward, and so I am so thankful for that.
God doesn't give us the easy plan or the
Right.
easy roadmap. He gives us, like, the things that, like, the detours in life. And it's, what's the lesson that we learn from that? And so, what would be a good lesson that you would, when you were going through your journey, and you were going through your, if you want to talk about that,
Yeah.
your grieving, and how you made yourself, what did you do for yourself to heal from all the things besides the counseling, like the support group? What else did you do?
Yeah, my husband was a huge part of that, because he was who I had, and so being able to just really talk with him, being able to cry about it, it would when I would see a pregnant person, especially, on Lexi's birthday, when I started having my own children, all of that, and I will say, as crazy as it is, I think I found the most healing when I started to share about it publicly. When Lexi was, when she first started, when we moved here and she first started kind of like coming around more several years ago, I remember, a young little boy that was a close family friend of ours. He was littler, but he was like, "Who is this?" And I was like, "Oh, this is a family member of ours." Because it's like I didn't know what to say. It's like, "Who? Oh my gosh, that's so confusing. It's my daughter, but it's not really." And do you have 4 kids? Do you have 5 kids? It's kind of like always this limbo. When I was able to let go of, no, she's your daughter. She's your daughter. Who is this? This is Lexi. This is my daughter. This is Austin's oldest sister. When I was able to let go of trying to make it make sense to everybody else, and I was really able to embrace who she really was, who I really was to her, it got so much easier. Um, and I know that was probably the long way around your question, but um, when I just really, I think for a long time, I had my own walls up because I didn't want to get hurt. And so it was like, no, I'm not her mom. Deborah's her mom. But the truth is, no, I'm her mom. I am her mom. I'm not her mom in the most conventional way. Um, but being able to really embrace our relationship and who I am to her and who she is to me was crazy helpful for me. And I think a lot of that was when I started sharing about it on social media,
Yep.
as crazy as that sounds. But I think that that's really when I was be able to be open and honest with myself about our situation. That's when things really started to, I feel like, heal the best.
Yes, I love that, and I think that I mean, I can agree with you and the things that I have went through in life, and when I was able to finally talk about it, like, I didn't really share, the loss of our, when we miscarried, and I didn't really share, and once I started, like, it hit me a couple years ago, even though I thought, I've been past this, it's been, I'm like, "Wait, why do I not talk about that I had this?" Because it's something we would still the day of that she passed, I would still remember, the day that she should have been born. I remember, like, we still talk about it even to this day. She would have been 22 years old, and we still talk about it.
Yeah.
My husband and I, and for a long time we didn't, and it made it really, really hard. And it, we kind of didn't. We were dealing with our own pain that we didn't, and we kind of just it make it easy to fight and all those things, and it wasn't healthy. And so I love that you have the support of your husband, and me and my husband have worked through all of that, and it's really helped us a lot. And so I love that you had that communication, you had that person that you could open up to and talk and help just push you to move forward. I
Yes,
think that's amazing.
for
And
sure.
you know how is your guys' relationship? I mean, she still lives with you right now, and
She does.
yeah.
Yeah, so she does, and she just turned 23 about 2 weeks ago at the 1st of this month, and she does still live with us. She's getting her own place at the 1st of August, so she's super excited about that. My kids are already missing her like crazy, but it's literally just up the road. And it'll be good for her. It'll be good for her to get on her own. But it's funny, the last few weeks, we've all kind of been going in different directions because we've had certain things that we've been out of town or she's been working or that sort of thing. And so we've kind of all been, and it's crazy just how much we all miss each other. And so yesterday was the first time we've been home together for a while. And everybody was like, let's just all do nothing together. And so it's a really sweet relationship. Like I said, she's really one of my best friends. She does still have a close relationship with both of her parents. A lot of people ask that. They're like, "Oh, now that she lives with you, does she not talk to her parents?" I'm like, "No, no, no, no. Yes, she does. She just, is living with us right now." But it's been such a blessing. It's been such a blessing.
Well, I don't share much about this. I don't think I really ever talked about it on social media or anything really. Maybe here and there, but when people talk to us, we took in my daughter's best friend a couple years ago, and we call her our bonus daughter. And it's to have that relationship, and I mean, she's an adult, but we took her in and we love on her as it doesn't matter that I didn't give birth to her or anything like that, but the relationship of just being able to care for another human is amazing.
and, you gave that opportunity to, you said Diane was her name?
Her name's Deborah, Deborah and
Deborah.
Steve. Mhm,
Deborah and Steve, that
mhm.
just to give them that child that they could love on.
Yeah.
And in the circumstances that I was under or that our daughter's friend was under wasn't, she's actually doesn't have her parents both are not alive and now,
Oh,
and just the fact that it just feels so good to say that, to love and be able to love another child, and it doesn't matter how it
right.
came into your life. It's just the fact that just God gave you that heart for a reason. And I know it wasn't easy for you to have to do what you had to do, but that relationship that you guys have now is so amazing, and that, all the benefits and that your children and the circumstances might have been different. You wouldn't have, if it had been the other way, and
No
who
question.
knows? And you can't question what God put in the path for you. You can
Yeah,
just say, okay, what's the lesson I'm learning? And through the hard, what is the lesson I'm learning and how can I, move on? And I think
absolutely.
that's a big impact.
I agree. I agree.
So what is now that all the things, do you think you'll ever write a book about this?
I don't know. It's so funny that you say that. I don't know. I don't know the answer to that. If the opportunity presented itself, I think I would love to. You know, just like I said, I think that adoptions can be so contractual. That, well, I require this, this, and this. And I think that if we could just bring our walls down and just love each other where you are, they could be so beautiful. And I know that all adoptions look different, and I know that all circumstances are different, and I know that not everybody is in a position to have these kind of relationships with adoptive parents and birth parents and the child, of course. Um, but man, I love like I said, just being able to share our story, and if it just gives somebody just a little bit of hope, or it's for sure worth it.
You don't have to change the world, but you can make one impact, and I think
I love it.
you
Absolutely.
sharing about it is making a huge impact, and
Yeah.
you're right, like, everybody's journey is not the same, and everybody has different things that they go through, and, there's just that going back to that perspective, and you just have to be, we have to be respectful. We all have an opinion and a
Yeah.
viewpoint, but just focusing on what's the right godlike,
Yeah.
version that we should be paying attention to, and
Yeah.
going at that.
Yeah.
What is one phrase or word that you would want to leave to my listeners with a call to action?
Oh my gosh, I love that. Um, well, let's see. I think being obedient to what God lays on your heart, I think that would be my call to action. And I actually have, if it's okay if I read it, I actually have
Yes, go ahead.
um okay, a letter that a birth mom wrote. And I love sharing it because I feel like it just gives such a great perspective from a birth mom. Her name was or her name is Adrienne Collins, and she's a birth mom, but she's also an adoptive mom. And so I want to share with you guys what she wrote because I think this is really, really good. It says, birth moms are one of the only groups of women I know who are expected to grieve politely, even quietly. Most of us carry our burden in silence, lest we be perceived as unruly or unstable. No matter the circumstances that led to our decision, we also suffered a loss, and we're coping the best way that we can. We are not unstable, we're grieving. And post placement grief can haunt us for years, always simmering beneath the surface. Yet somehow we're expected to keep our heads down and carry on with nowhere to release our frustration or anger, nowhere to process our guilt and shame, no hand to grasp, and no shoulder to cry on. Birth moms deserve a grieving period just like anyone else who has ever dealt with the loss of a child. If you aren't able to grieve properly, we become numb to our emotions, and numbness is the worst fate for a grieving mom. She says that she's been numb to pain. I've been numb to my true feelings. I thought I was protecting myself from further heartache, but instead my walls grew thicker. My heart remained shattered. To our community, please be patient with us. Hear our cries, hold our hand, bring us a meal, take us out for coffee, drive us to a birth mom support group. Make sure that we're getting long term professional help on a regular basis. See to it that we find appropriate ways to mend our broken hearts. and don't allow us to suffer in silence. I thought that was really good. I thought that was really good.
Love that because I could relate to that in so many ways.
Yes.
When, like I was saying, we miscarried and there was no support group and there was just like the feeling of just like an emptiness, so to speak.
Yeah,
And,
absolutely.
3 weeks after so I had to have the surgery, and 3 weeks after the surgery, I went back in for a follow-up, and they didn't update the paperwork, so they thought I was like, "Oh, we're
Oh,
gonna take you to the sonogram room," and I'm like, "The baby passed," and it was so hard to deal with that, and it was like nobody was like, "Hey, let's go and do something," or "Let's go and" it was like a feeling just of emptiness, and like I said, I didn't get help until I collapsed, and
yeah.
it was if I hadn't collapsed, what would have been help what else would have happened? Um, but it's like we have to do survival mode and people and when we're by ourselves, people don't understand like we are hurting too. It's not
Yeah.
an easy decision or or an easy thing we're going through. So I just love that letter and it was like I was trying not to cry while you were reading it because I was like, oh, it could touch for so many things that we're going through in life, you know.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I think that so often when we know someone who is in a grieving stage, we don't know what to say, and so we don't say anything at all. And I think that that's where like the misconception comes in. It's like, okay, it's okay to not know what to say, but still say, reach out, whatever that looks like. Because like I said, and I'm definitely guilty of it. It's like sometimes I just don't know what to say, so I don't say anything at all. And I think that that's where we need to make the change.
Yeah, I love that. That's where you need to make the change because, like, even if you just say, "Hey, I don't know what to say. I
Yes,
am sorry for what you're going through. But do you want to just go and have coffee?" Or like I
yes.
like that what they said, or do you want to just go for, a drive or, a walk or,
Absolutely.
move your
Absolutely.
body, all those types of things. I love
Yep.
that.
Yep.
Well, I'm so excited that you
Thanks.
said yes to and you shared your story. I just love talking to you and I'm just so thankful for it because I know that there may be people, my listeners, who are, thinking or struggling through their journey of pregnancy, or maybe they're wondering about adoption, or any of those things. And you gave the perspective of both sides, and I just love it. And I know that it's going to make an impact because you're going to
Well,
make an
I
impact.
appreciate you. It was an honor to be here, and I appreciate you reaching out to me. And I'm really proud of you for what you're doing.
Thank you. I appreciate.
Thank you for joining us on this episode of Refine and Shine. We hope you find valuable insights and inspiration to fill your journey of continuous improvement. Remember, the key to success lies in refining your processes and letting your inner brilliance shine. If you've enjoyed this episode, be sure to subscribe to the podcast and leave a review. Your feedback is greatly appreciated and helps us reach more listeners like you who are eager to refine and shine in all areas of life. Stay connected with us on social media for updates and additional resources and behind the scenes content. We love hearing from our listeners, so feel free to reach out with any suggestions, questions, or success stories you'd like to share. As we wrap up, remember that the power to transform your life lies within you. Keep striving for growth, embracing change, and seeking opportunities to refine your skills. Together, let's continue to shine bright and make a positive impact in the world. Until next time, keep refining and keep shining.